What's up, college football fans? Welcome back to another Big Men on Campus podcast. We begin our college football betting outlooks for the 2019-2020 season, and it's good to be back. It is great, in the middle of the summer to start talking a little college football. It'll be here before we know it. And with the NBA season winding down, baseball in full force, it's nice to take a look at something else as you prepare for football. The work is to be done now as we head into July and August, and the season will be just around the corner. Basically, you look at this, kind of early June. 3 months from now, we will be watching football. So it is a great time of the year to get excited about. Really wanted to get started today with the American, the AAC. And this is a conference that over the years has been a great over conference. If you've been betting it, obviously you've been betting a lot of UCF over the years with guys like Mackenzie Milton and players like that. But it's kind of a new day this year. I'm going to get into it. Obviously, we're going to do most of this from a betting standpoint, but do want to throw in some kind of things to remember when taking a look at some of these schools. Really, what I'm going to do over these previews is kind of give you my favorite and kind of give you a couple teams to look out for from an against the spread and over standpoint, and really just an overall team to look out for in this conference, maybe as a sleeper. Obviously, the favorite is Central Florida, and why wouldn't they be? They were terrific last year, 12-1. They go and they play in the Fiesta Bowl, losing that game. But look, I got a feeling if they had Mackenzie Milton, they'd probably win that game. They didn't. They had Daryl Mack, who actually played pretty well. And this year's going to be interesting because Daryl Mack is back, but you also look at what they went out and did. They brought in Brandon Wimbush, former Notre Dame quarterback. And that's going to be an interesting quarterback battle as we get into July and into August, who ends up winning that job. Wimbush had some decent seasons at Notre Dame, never really panned out. Maybe, obviously, kind of a bit lesser competition. A year or two under his belt, he'll have the ability to go and play and do some good things at Central Florida. You look, though, at this team, and where I think a lot of teams in the AAC generally struggle is defensively. They don't have enough. Sometimes they don't bring enough back. And, Central Florida really is that team this year. You look at on defense, they do return some starters, but you look at most of those starters are in the secondary. The front seven only returns two starters from last year. And this is a team that, look, if you watch Central Florida, their big issue was defending the run. They just could not stop the run. They gave up over 222 yards a game. And, this year, that's something that if they do this year, they're going to have trouble. It's that simple. Defensively, they were good. They only gave up about 23 points a game, which they're more of a bend but don't break defense. But, with only two starters back and that issue up front with really no one back, I think the defensive line is going to struggle again. They were a great over team last year, 9-4 to the over. I have no reason to think they won't be this year. Do I love them like I did last year? No. I'm not. Again, I'm going to have to see what we kind of find out from Wimbush and with Daryl Mack. If those guys taking the next step, to be big-time quarterbacks. This is a system that they should do well. And Josh Heupel's group, always are very good offensively. They had a great tempo last year. They averaged a play every 20 seconds, which is second fastest in the country last year. So they're going to put up 50 points like it's their job. It's not a difficult thing to do if you're them. Last year, they put up 50 points 4 different times. So this is a group that can score. You look at their schedule. Not bad, really. Out of conference at Florida Atlantic, that should be a game they should be able to win. They do get Stanford at home. I don't think it's out of the question to think that they're undefeated going into that game on November 2nd against Houston. Good thing about that game, it is at home as well. So, some of the tougher games on the schedule, they do get at home. But I think that's going to be the game because for me, their biggest competitor in this conference is Houston. Look, I'll be honest, I did not understand Dana Holgerson's move to Houston. I don't consider them a high-level sports school. I guess they're kind of somewhat high, but they're not, perennial team. He is from that area. And, you look at this offense. I mean, Houston's going to be that team that is going to challenge UCF. And you look at why. I mean, De'Ara King's back, Marcus Stevenson's back, Keith Corbin, Courtney Lark, all those receivers are back. Patrick Carr's back at running back. Their offensive line brings back 3 starters. Both tackles are seniors. Their center is a senior. That formidable offensive line is something you love. Every starter on that offensive line is a junior or senior. So this offense shouldn't have any reason humming. And last year they did. I mean, 44 points a game, 5th in the country in scoring offense, top 25 in rushing and passing offense. Just a terrific offense. It's that simple. But, again, we look at the big issue in this conference is the ability to get stops. And Houston was historically bad last year on defense. I mean, it's actually quite embarrassing, really. I mean, and look, I know they had a lot of injuries, but they set school records for points allowed, total yards, rushing touchdowns. I mean, this was just a awful defense. And, what makes it crazy is they had probably the best defensive player in the draft in Ed Oliver up front. They went out and made some changes, brought in a new coordinator in Joe Calhoun, who was a really good defensive coordinator at Arkansas State. They switched up their defense from a 3 to a 4-man front to do a better job against the run. Look, they returned 2 guys in the secondary, and they do have a lot of upperclassmen on defense. But you got to wonder: are they going to be able to take a big step forward defensively, especially with all the the linebacker play is going to be bad. I have to figure. I mean, they return all new guys on at the linebacker position. As usual, I think for them, they're just going to have to score a lot of points and get some stops. But I think they can win this conference. But you look at their schedule. I mean, the problem that Houston has is the schedule. They open up the season at Oklahoma. Then they got to play Washington State. They have to have Tulane thrown in there early, which is a tough game in New Orleans. They also have to go over to Denton and play North Texas. That's going to be a tough game. Seth Luttrell's team is really good with a quarterback in Mason Fine who should light up Houston. That's a great over game right there. That'll be a price probably in the 70s. I don't see any reason that's not one of those heavy, hefty games. But, the big game for them, I think, is going to be November 2nd. They actually have kind of a tough stretch there. They got to go to Connecticut, or I'm sorry, they have to go to Cincinnati. They have SMU, UCF, and Memphis all in about a month period. So, late October, November is going to prove a lot for Houston. And ultimately, I think I really think they could be an all-bust kind of team because you have to figure the first 3 games, they're going to win 1. They're going to beat Prairie View. So there's 1 win. They should beat Tulane. That's 2. Should be able to beat North Texas. That's 3. But Cincinnati's a tough game. SMU's really good. UCF's the best team in the league. Memphis is always very good. This is crazy. They're kind of an all-boom team. It wouldn't surprise me if they go, 11-2, or if they go 5-6 or something, or 5-7, or 5 and like. It wouldn't surprise me because they have a tough schedule here. It's not like they're just sitting there playing, Prairie View and Stetson and like random teams. They're not doing that. They're not playing, Arkansas Pine Bluff. They're not doing that. They're challenging themselves, which again will help them down the road. But this is a tough schedule, especially with De'Ara King coming off an injury. Says he feels good, but this is a bear of a schedule. So while I like Houston, I think they're going to be a good team to back at certain points. Great over team. I'm really not too high on them long term. I think they'll be a good competitor. And again, if things go the right way for them early on, they could be a team that could definitely run this off. But it also wouldn't surprise me if Houston doesn't even get to a bowl game. This is a tough schedule. I mean, let's look at the wins. Prairie View, Tulane, North Texas, Connecticut. That's 4. Should beat Tulsa and Navy. That's 6. So they should get to a bowl game. I think it'd be a complete failure if they don't. But if they only get 6 or 7 wins, that wouldn't surprise me. I think low point 6 wins, high point wouldn't surprise me if they win 10 or 11 games. They're really an all bust, all break team. Couple of teams I think are going to be valuable from an ATS perspective. Definitely SMU. I'm really excited about SMU coming into the season, and for me, that's obviously not something that I say very often. I'm not a big Sonny Dykes guy, but I was impressed with this defense last year. And I know the total defensive numbers won't really play a part, but Sonny Dykes has not ever been a defensive master by any means. At times, a few years ago, this team was giving up a lot of points. They finally turned it around. And you look at over their final 6 games, 5 of those games, they held opponents to 31 or fewer points. So they're making strides on defense. You look at coming back on this defensive line, they bring back all 4 starters. They bring back 2 guys in the secondary and a few guys at the linebacker position. So I'm pretty happy with what we're getting back defensively here. 7 guys on defense. Very athletic team. That's one thing about SMU. They always bring in athletic guys. Um, and you look at the quarterback position. Ben Hicks struggled at times last year. He moves on to Arkansas. They bring in Shane Buechele from Texas. I think a guy that's going to have a lot of success at Houston, or I'm sorry, at SMU. You look at kind of the comparison. A lot of people are talking about Garrett Gilbert when he transferred from Texas. Wouldn't surprise me if it's a similar situation here. I think he's going to do some really good things at SMU. They bring back Prochet, Judah Bell, and Reggie Robertson all at the offensive positions. Bring back a good senior tight end in Ryan Becker, and I think strengthening the quarterback position. Him and Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator, should have a lot of success. They should be able to move the football, and again, with an improved defensive team. I think they're a third or fourth in the AAC West. I think they're surely a bowl team this year. I think they get there. Schedule's not terrible. I mean, you got Arkansas State, Texas State early on. Those should be 2 wins. Temple, that's a winnable game at home. You get Tulsa at home. You get East Carolina, Navy, and Tulane to round out the season. They should be a bowl team. I believe they get there, and I think they go bowling for the first time. In a long time. Um, in fact, I don't think they've won a bowl in like 7 or 8 years. I don't think. I think it's been a while. I think it was the last bowl game they won. I think was with Garrett Gilbert back in kind of the 2012ish range. So SMU I think takes a nice step forward this year. Last year they only win 5 games. I think they win 6 or 7 this year. I think they're being a team that definitely as kind of a dog you're going to want to get into. Especially over double. Approaching double digits, 7, 8 points. I think you're going to have some value with them. I think they're going to be better than people think. Um, One other team, and then I'm going to get to my real surprise team. Another team that I think is going to have some real success against the spread is East Carolina. A lot of people remember a few years ago, they had guys like Shane Carden there, Zay Jones. Back then, this was a team that regularly had success, but they've had a couple tough years down in Greenville. And I think there's reason for optimism here. I really, really, really do. One of the reasons is they finally went out and made a coaching move. Scotty Montgomery wasn't good enough. In fact, he was a complete mess. Went out and got Mike Houston, who had some real success at James Madison, made them into a D1 double A kind of power over the last couple of years. And I think really with East Carolina is watching them last year, just the inability of them to be seemingly interested at all. I mean, there was no energy. It was flat. Offensive line play was bad. Too many turnovers. Just bad defense at times. Losing games you should win. You lose the first game of the season against North Carolina A&T. You lost a tough game to Tulane. You lost some tough games. Then late in the season, really just gave up. You get destroyed 56-6 against Cincinnati. You lose 58-3 to NC State. Really just gave up. And they only won 3 games. I think there's reasons to believe that some of those close games they had last year, the 2 or 3 that they had, I think there's reason for optimism that they can get them turned around. I'm not going to tell you I think they're bowling. I'm not going to tell you I think they can win 6 or 7 games, but I do think they can make a 4 or 5 game win here, and I think they can cover some games this year. I really do. I think Mike Houston's going to just bring a different culture back to this group. They actually, surprisingly enough, weren't terrible offensively. They're 57th in total offense. whether it was Ehlers or Herring, they actually threw the ball pretty well. Offensive line, you bring back three guys. You bring back pretty much all of your defense. Pretty good special teams. Look, do I think that they can go and be a bowling team? No, but I think they can start to look up and start to get excited in Greenville. I think they're a 4 or 5 win team, but I do think they'll be better than they were last year against the spread, which wasn't good. So definitely keep an eye out for East Carolina. I think they're going to be a group that is worthy of getting some of your money. One other team I wanted to bring up, I think the team that I think is the biggest competition really outside of Houston and UCF. I think it's Cincinnati. Luke Fickell is really, really building a good football team. Coming off an 11-2 season, won their bowl game in the rain down at the Military Bowl. You gotta like what he has done there, and I think the real only concern is the fact that other than Luke Fickell leaving, you bring back Michael Warren at running back, who was terrific last year. You bring back a quarterback in Desmond Ridder, who is another year better. You bring back some skill position guys. Your offensive line's going to be good again. And this defense last year was shining. I mean, they were absolutely magnificent. Only gave up 17 points a game. Had a terrific rush defense. Your turnover margin wasn't bad. You really just did a nice job across the board on defense. And they're really one of the teams in this conference that I think you can really feel good about backing from a defensive perspective. They just get off the field. They're night and day difference. It's that simple. And that's what making the right hire does for you. Luke Fickell continues to improve. And, you look at in 2017, one big thing when the difference between a good and bad football team a lot of the time is on offense, is it manageable on third down? Are you putting yourself in good position on first and second down to be successful on third down? So 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, are you putting yourself in the position to convert and keep possessions going? You look at it in 2017, their average third down to go was 7.6 yards. So pretty much in every play on third down, they're averaging 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. It was 115th in the country. Last year, they improved it by almost 2 yards, up to 31st in the country. So this team made big strides offensively, put themselves in better positions, and in turn were very good offensively. The one thing I hope to see from another year for Ridder, another offseason, is his ability to be a little bit more accurate, move the football down the field. They weren't great offensively from a passing standpoint, but I think this year he's another year better. He's got a good run game he can fall back on, and I think a pretty decent group of skill position players that should make that team. Instead of scoring 35 points a game, I think they can push 40 points a game. I think this is a really, really good football team. Wouldn't surprise me, 9-3, something like that. You look at the schedule. UCLA out of the gate should be able to win that football game. They do got to go to Ohio State, which is likely a loss. But, aren't you kind of seeing how it all works here? Second game of the season, new coach for Ohio State. Maybe the guy they should look to down the road comes back to Buckeye country and hands them their first loss of the season. Wouldn't that be interesting? This isn't one of the greater Ohio State teams this year. I'm going to mark that down. Won't be surprising to me if Cincinnati goes in and beats Ohio State this year. Mark that one down. Miami of Ohio should be a win. That group's down this year. At Marshall, that's always a tough football game. And it is obviously a look-ahead situation. They really have a tough spot here because they got to go to Marshall at the end of September. Then they got to look ahead to UCF and Houston. So, two tough football games there. We'll beat Tulsa and East Carolina and Connecticut. Nice little stretch there. South Florida is always tough, but they should beat them. To me, I think they're a 9-3 football team. I really, really do. And I think they find a way to really challenge UCF in the East. I'm going to tell you right now, I think Cincinnati wins the American this year. I really do. I think this is a really, really solid football team. And I like where we're headed. I think they have the best running back in the league. I think they have a really good secondary and defensive team. I think from a quarterback perspective, I think Desmond Ritter is probably the third or fourth best quarterback in this conference behind probably De'Ara King and the guys at UCF. But even without Mackenzie Milton, I mean, are you honestly going to tell me you think Ritter's not better than Wimbush or Mack? I don't think that's out of the question. Mark it down. I think Cincinnati wins the American, and I'm also going to call it. I think they beat Ohio State in the second game of the season. So keep an eye on the Cincinnati Bearcats this year in the AAC. That'll do it. Obviously, if you're new around here, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you think. Who do you like in the AAC? Comment below for sure. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe. Again, going to have a conference preview for every single conference. Next one will be the ACC. And I got to tell you, I think you all know where I'm going there. Everyone have a great night. Thank you for watching. I'm the Big Man on Campus. We'll see you next time.